Hello again, it's Kathleen from Cross Stitch Antiques, and it's been about 2 months since I last presented a video. I have been busy. Today I want to show you some projects I've been working on. First of all, I want to show you some antiques that I've acquired, at least one for now, some previous stitchings I've done in the past, and some of my current projects. So first of all, let me just share with you that I am going to be teaching at Victorian Rose Needlework in early June. Unfortunately, for anybody who wanted to come, the class registration has closed, but I am going to be teaching 2 workshops, and I just wanted to show you those projects because these will be released in the future, 6 to 12 months from now. So I've been on a Quaker binge lately. If you might recall, I taught at the Attic in the January Sampler Symposium for Jean Lee, who so kindly invited me, and I presented 2 Quakers there. And I believe I have acquired about 8 Quaker samplers in the past year. Many of them are historic Quakers, one of which is in Ackworth. I showed that in a previous video. I also have a Westtown sampler and a couple other smaller Quakers. One is actually from Ireland, which I'm going to show you now. And this is the one I'm going to be teaching at Tinka's shop in Gainesville, Florida in early June. So it's a sneak peek for those of you who are attending, and for those of you who are not, they will be released in the future. So let me first of all show you the antique. And this is the beautiful antique Quaker sampler. There is no name on this, nor is there a year, but you will see the letters SI appear twice, once at the top there and once in that medallion on the far the side, whichever that is for you. Now this antique, the original, was stitched on 32 count linen over 2 and measures about 15 inches by 11.5. The linen is uneven weave and it's very coarse and loosely woven. So when I reproduced it, I typically reproduce the colors from the front. I really like the muted tones that age has produced in a sampler, in an antique sampler. And this one, the colors still are fairly vibrant. So let me show you my reproduction. And the reproduction is beautiful, if I say so myself. You have the model here stitched on 40 count vintage buttercream by Lakeside, and I used NPI silks. And just bear with me, I'm going to try to hold both of these up at the same time so you get an idea. Okay, the original was, as I mentioned, 32 count, and here is the 40 count. You can see how similar they are. In terms of color, linen and silks, but the size is much different. So this model is denser. The linen is more closely woven, and it's just really a stunning layout, using those half medallions in the border and the typical Quaker motifs of the beautiful floral sprigs. And during my research, I realized that the SI most likely does not represent a child's initials, but actually the name of a school, a Quaker school. And the SI stands for Sir Island, which is a school in Ireland. I believe it's in the town called Tipperary, or near Tipperary originally. The school was built in 1787. It was near County Tipperary, and it was founded by prosperous Quaker missionaries and philanthropists Robert and Sarah Toog. Here there is information on the chart which more allows for further research, and you can read all that when you take the class or when you obtain the sampler down the road. So that's the SI Quaker, and I think she's beautiful. All right. The second class I'm going to be teaching is another Quaker. This one too is going to be in Gainesville at Tinka's shop. 2 classes, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. And accompanying the class itself, I'm going to be doing a lecture, which the first one would be accompanying the sampler I just told you about, and the lecture is entitled A Stroll Through the Samplers of My Cross-Stitch Antiques Collection. And this is a booklet that the class members obtain when they participate in my classes. I started producing these in January for the attic, and these will accompany various lectures that I'm going to be doing in the future. So it's the history of samplers, starting from the early days of the 1600s here in America, all the way through the present, and representing various different countries, and basically highlighting most representative samplers in my collection, including American, Welsh, English, Irish, and Scottish samplers that I have in my collection, with a lot of history and survey of pretty much the history of samplers, actually, in a very small booklet. But a lot of resources were used in providing the information, which I attribute to the various references here, and you can check all that out when you come to one of my classes and get the book yourself. These are not available for purchase at this time. People have asked me, but hopefully down the road, these are a teaching tool. Okay, so back to the second class, which is another Quaker sampler, and I'm excited again to be presenting in June. And this one is called Lydia Mendenhall, and it's from 1817. And she is definitely a Pennsylvania Quaker sampler. This is actually the antique you're looking at. Let's see, the antique measures 12 by 17, and reproducing it, I used 40 count vintage meadow rue with needlepoint ink silks with conversion to DMC also provided, as well as 103 silks, which I do provide on all of my charts since I fell in love with them about a year ago. 103 silks are my preferred. Wouldn't say preferred, but I do love them. I do love DMC, I love NPI, and I love Belsois and Gloriana. So anyway, currently I do stitch a lot with 103. I just love the way it looks and feels on 46 count linen. So I'm sure all of you have found something that is the perfect match that you enjoy stitching with too. So the more often we get a chance to do that, the better, right? Okay, so Lydia Mendenhall, a Quaker, beautiful Pennsylvania sampler. And this one is really interesting because it has a large number of specialty stitches. So for the class I'm going to be teaching, we're going to go over some of the stitches. And just to kind of review what they will be: cross stitch over 2, satin stitch in the border, cross stitch 4-sided stitch, cross stitch over 1. We have rice stitch, Smyrna cross, Algerian eyelet, and there is some freehand embroidery down there in these beautiful swan and birds on top of the basket. In the chart, I have converted those all to cross stitch, so I give you the option to either do the satin stitch or the cross stitch. So again, another beautiful historic sampler. This one comes with full provenance about Lydia, who was born in 1809 in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, to Quaker parents. And she spent a good life there. Most of her life was spent there. And you can read more about it when you get the chart, but there is a lot of provenance provided. So this sampler, the workshop, the lecture accompanying her will be a lecture on Quaker samplers. Quaker samplers, which are not just about the medallions. And here is another booklet, a teaching guide, which I will be presenting to the women and men attending, and it goes through a number of Quakers in my collection, but also interesting information about Quakers, the Religious Society of Friends, that is, officially, the schools that were formed, the lasting motifs that we all admire, and how they came about, and what are the significance of those motifs, and a wide range of Quaker samplers, mostly in my collection, with highlights of some other very famous Quakers too. So there you have it. Those are the projects I've been working on lately in terms of stitching for Cross Stitch Antiques. These are the colors for Lydia. This is the vintage Meadow Rue. And we also have the beautiful silks, sorry, baggies. The silks MPI, you can see the pretty colors. All right, so that's been keeping me busy since March. Last time I spoke with you, I was going to Nashville Market just over 2 months ago. So again, been stitching a lot and producing some beautiful samplers for all of you to enjoy, as well as myself. Now, speaking of samplers I enjoy, I will now show you my most recent antique acquisition. This sampler I found on the internet, and it was very inexpensive. I believe I paid maybe $200 for it. I was attracted to it for a number of reasons, which I will explain in a minute. And I just got this, so I don't have a lot of information yet. But first of all, let's take a good look at her. She's pretty large, very intricate. She has a large number of motifs, like scattered spot motifs almost, and there's your peacock. So sometimes that means it's a Scottish sampler, sometimes not. It just depends on, you know, the overall information we can find out about her. The name stitched on this is Margaret Swan, wrought by my hand, aged 12, in the year of our Lord, 1782. That's what attracted me to it. It's so old and so beautiful, but look at those vibrant blues in the verses. So not only the composition attracted me, the age of the sampler, these vibrant blues, the lovely, it looks like a heart border which alternates up and down, but the verses themselves, sorry for that glare. One of my favorite verses from the Bible is, "Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own work praise her in the gate." That has to be one of my most favorite verses. I love it. Proverbs 31. And then the second one says, see how the lilies flourish, white and fair. See how the raven fed from heaven's air. Then never mistrust thy God for loaves and bread, while lilies flourish and ravens fed. Isn't that amazing? Oh, I love that one too. So anyway, now you know why I love it so much. And eventually I will get to reproducing this sometime soon, I hope. So look for her in the future, Margaret Swan. Just gorgeous. All right. So there have been such a plethora of samplers, just amazing antique samplers reproduced by so many various people. I'm sure we're all trying to just keep our heads above water, just to keep abreast of what they are when they come out, let alone acquire them and stitch them. So I was very honored by Teresa Vanette, who asked me to be part of her sampler box, which occurred last October, about 6 months ago. And some of you who might have obtained that sampler box know that there were 12 different designers who each contributed something to the antique sampler box or reproduction box. So I wanted to give another close-up of that because I believe Kitten Stitcher still has some of these available. And this was my contribution. It's a beautiful sampler, and the reason why I picked this one and Teresa approved it was because, if you haven't seen this one yet, Kitten Stitcher loves kittens. And this is the antique. See those two kittens down there? So this is called In Memory of Louise. And all we really know about Louise is that she loved animals. We have some deer, a beautiful bird on a floral wreath in the center with beautiful floral rose border, and the kittens. And this is actually in German. The words mean in memory of Louise Tegan, and the bottom date reads 1874. It's a Berlin wool work sampler, and there wasn't much to obtain in terms of information about Louise at all. However, I wanted to give her honor, and I stitched it on 40 count linen. Here's the reproduction using 103 silks. And there you see I also changed the words to English and put them in red instead of the ghosted out lettering that you can't even see. But here's a close-up view of the beautiful animals, the swan, the floral border, and those cute little kittens at the bottom. So this one is still available from Kitten Stitcher, and it will be released in the future after a year has passed from October of 2022. So thank you for looking at that. Then I thought it might be fun for you ladies and gentlemen to actually see some antique samplers that I've reproduced in the past. Believe it was in 2018. These came out, so I'm going to show you one or two each time. Instead of just my new releases, I want to be a little bit broader. Some people have said, oh, your videos are so short. Well, usually I probably won't go much more than 30 minutes. I'm kind of a introvert person, so, but when I get to talking about samplers, I guess I do find things to say. Anyway, this one is called 3 Red Pots. This is the antique. I love this sampler. This is a beautiful layout. It was stitched by Sylvia Trigg in the year 1841. This antique is on the cover of the chart, and she's available on my website, as are all of my samplers, and many of them are in kit form. So this one is titled 3 Red Pots. My samplers on my website are available to the public, with the exclusion of anything that is or has been a class piece for 12 months. So some of these will be coming out in the future, but this one was released in 2018. She's still a very popular seller. So like I said, some of them are kitted on my website, the more recent ones. If you would like to send me an email through my website to ask if I could kit it up, if it does not have a kit, I could possibly try to do that as well. Okay, let me set her down. She's very heavy. All right. And then, maybe some of you have been following me for a while and some of you have not, but I've actually been reproducing samplers since 2017, but I also have been a stitcher all my life, and pretty much since the 80s, cross stitch. So I love stitching other designers' samplers. I've always been a sampler stitcher. That's my thing, even when it wasn't very popular, and thanks be to God it's very popular now. But I love the history, obviously. I love researching the girls and finding a connection with them as I stitch and as I research. But to bring something from the past to the present, there's nothing more special than that, I think, is to have them come to life again. So I think we all feel that. So some of the samplers that are hanging around my house, I don't even know half of their names anymore, but this, I believe, is the Scarlet House on Strawberry Manor, maybe. I kind of took some license with it and added Strawberry Fields Forever. I believe I stitched this, yeah, in 2015. This is probably on 32 count because I wasn't really venturing beyond 32 count at all until about 4 years ago. And now my favorite go-to is 46. So it's probably just because I never tried it. And when you try something, you like it. So practice too makes perfect. Practice with your eyes and doing something over like a little bit of time before giving up. You know, you kind of overcome those challenges. It gives you time for your eyes to adjust. So there's one of them that hangs in my home. Another one that's in our first floor is the Agnes Platt sampler, which is from Blackburn. I believe the booklet's called Agnes Platt's Strawberries, possibly. And this one I stitched also in 2015. Again on 32 count using the called for, which I believe were Gentle Art. I just really love this, love the layout, love the bisque. And they hang together in the same room, those two. All right, now going even further back, I have this sampler, which I did on Ada, and I believe it must have been in about 2002, 2001, on Ada linen. It's a pattern from a book about samplers, and I believe it's called Historic Samplers, and maybe next time I will pull that book I meant to, but I stitched about 4 different samplers from that book, and these hang in my dining room. And again, this is my history. I learned on Ada. I'm a self-taught stitcher. I used to stitch in hand, but not using the sewing method, more just on my lap. I stitch with 2 hands, one being my left hand is underneath the linen or Ada, and my right hand, which is actually the dominant one, is on top. So there you have it. Very proud to have stitched these. I don't take them down even though I've advanced to linen. I'm proud of my work on Ada, and I know it was with DMC, and it's a lovely, lovely sampler. So look up the book Historic Samplers and you'll see the patterns and you can stitch it yourself. Okay, so what else do I have to show you? All right, so I have a number of projects coming up for my business, Cross Stitch Antiques. I'm stitching models for projects that are coming in the future, but I don't want to neglect all my whips. And with all the beautiful samplers that are coming out lately, it's hard to juggle work that I know I have to do in terms of my model and samplers that I just really want to stitch for my own personal enjoyment and pleasure because I love them. So I've decided, instead of like wondering when I'm ever going to get to them, is to just make a little start. And on each one I'm just making a little start, and when I have some downtime and feel like I need a break, maybe on a Sunday, because I do stitch every day for maybe 3 to 4 hours at least. On a Sunday, maybe I'll take a vacation day and stitch something for pleasure. Not that I'm not enjoying stitching my own models, but you get my drift. So, in no particular order, some of these that have really caught my eye lately, and don't look around my sewing room here because all around me we have my stash. Don't look too closely because these projects might or might not ever get done. But this one really caught my eye. It's called Anne Perry. I love the layout. I love the density of the motifs and the colors. And I have done my own little conversion with silks. I believe some of these are Belsoise, some are Gloriana. There's some of the colors there. And I'm going to show you my start, which is on one of my most favorite linens, and this is X-Jude Baby Sheep. So there's my start, and this is 40 count with the silks. So when I get to it, when I have a chance, I will be working on that a little bit. Again, it's a pleasure just to touch and feel silk and linen. Doesn't matter if you don't get it all done ever. It's the process and the enjoyment in the moment that I really treasure. So speaking of treasuring samplers, many years ago, I purchased this sampler from the attic. I believe it was, I can tell you right now, I believe it was in 2014. And who doesn't want this one? Anne Rayner. Interestingly enough, Nancy Sturgeon, the woman who was Threads Through Time, lives in the Chicagoland area, or lived. I don't know if she's still alive, but I pray to God she is. Very talented woman who has reproduced a number of samplers from Naperville, historic Illinois, as well as I believe she's done a couple from the Art Institute of Chicago. Mainly her work was done in the 80s. So here we have Anne Rayner, which I know is out of print, but I had it in my stash. I've always wanted to stitch it, and if not now, when, right? So this would look beautiful on my sampler wall with Anne Perry. It's similar in terms of the density of the motifs, and I have decided to stitch 3 in a trio: Anne Perry, this one, and a needlework press I'm going to show you in a minute, all together, little by little, one stitch at a time. So first of all, this is a silk conversion. Using many of the silks here, I have tweaked the conversion a little bit. It was originally put out by Plum Street. I just changed the reds up a little bit. So I'm going to be using a couple different reds for the center flowers. One is going to be pomegranate, which is Gloriana, and I believe Schoolhouse Red, perhaps I chose. I have it written down somewhere. But anyway, the colors are lovely. And here is my little start on Anne Rayner. There you have it. This again is X-Jude Baby Sheep, 40 count. And just gonna take my time and enjoy it while I can. Give myself a little vacation break once in a while from my cross-stitch antiques work, and put in a few stitches when I get some downtime. All right, now the third one that would just look lovely together. Let me just check. Okay. So the red for the house is Gloriana Cinnabar. That's how I'm changing that. But, and the third one would be Needlework Press, Sarah Stewart Hartman. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Look how beautiful it would look with Anne Rayner. There we go. The house is very similar. The motifs and the colors really complement each other. You have the man and the woman and the beautiful pastoral scene and the sheep, and I just can't get enough of this. Just looking at the picture fills me with joy. So these are all Gloriana silks. This was a conversion from the attic, and this is where I obtained the chart and the beautiful Gloriana silks. They do such a wonderful job. And some of these are transferring over, as I mentioned, to Anne Rayner, because those red houses will match. All right, another fun project I have in mind. And then, last but not least, and those of you who know me or follow me at all will find this not surprising at all, but I have already started this. Yes. Oh my gosh. Anna Campbell. What on earth? This is such a gorgeous sampler. This young girl who stitched this so beautifully, was such a fine needle worker, and I hope to do half as well as she did. But there's nothing like the layout of this. It's so appealing to the eye. That top part with the Quaker Roman letters that appear on many Irish Quaker samplers, including some of the ones I've shown you and have reproduced myself. It's the very same alphabet. And this is just going to be a delightful thing to have in my hand. Whenever I get it done, it's not the point, but I'm going to enjoy every minute I stitch it. So, like I mentioned, I have started. I know we're not supposed to start until June 1st, or basically you can do whatever you want, but there is a great stitch along that's starting June 1st, and you can find out there's several shops that are participating in that stitch along that have come up with ways to provide you with the full kit. So I'm going to stitch mine on the called, well, not the called for necessarily, but the one that the model was stitched on. It's going to be, this is 46 count Lakeside linen, and I'm going to be using the 103 silks. And there I have the little start. The colors are not looking that great right here in this lighting, but you can see it's a beautiful pale blue and a lovely vibrant red and a little bit of black. So I always start my samplers in the center. I know it's something that most people don't do anymore, but I just feel more comfortable. It's the way I always started in the past. Like I mentioned before, I'm a self-taught stitcher, so that's kind of what I like to do. Make sure I don't have any mistakes in terms of my counting of the margins. And then here we have the 103 silks, which are just beautiful. All right, well, we're into about 30 minutes now, and let me just share a couple things. I look forward to the summer, which is right around the corner. We're having a graduation. Our high school daughter is graduating. We still have one left in high school. After this year, she'll be a senior. One of my daughters, who's in her early 30s, is getting her PhD from Notre Dame and getting hooded this month of May. There's Mother's Day coming up and Memorial Day weekend. We're celebrating a daughter's 35th birthday. So in the summer, we have my husband's big 65th birthday. We have our 40th wedding anniversary coming up. So just in terms of family life, we have a lot of wonderful things to look forward to, as well as to be grateful for, hope you're sitting down, the 5 weddings we've had in the past 18 months. And yes, you heard that right. Since October of 21, we've had 5 weddings in our family. Our son and 4 daughters, and 3 in the last 6 months, October, Christmas Eve, and just this past April, we've had 3 daughters get married. So, I've been busy, and I appreciate all your support with my little business. I also, as you might know, have a little shop, the Family Hearth General Store. I have a little bit of cross stitch there. Mostly it's a vintage, inspirational, old gift shop. I do sell not just my charts and kits, but I also sell very many other designers, and I fully stock with linen from Tabby Cat. I have needle and flax. Oh my goodness. I have some Lakeside, a little bit here and there of Lakeside. I have just a wide range of linens. I also carry all the Gentle Art, the DMC, the Classic Colorworks, the Weeks Dye Works threads, and I also have the 103 silks in abundance. So if you need anything, you can go onto my website, Family Hearth General Store. But if you're in Frankfort, Illinois, visiting our historic little town, please stop in. But if you're coming a little bit of a distance, please always call me, because as you can hear, I am sometimes gone out stitching at a retreat or just for my own enjoyment, visiting at a retreat, not just teaching, and participating in other events as well. So always call first to make sure I'm going to be there. I'm the only one that runs our shop. It's a nonprofit ministry as well. So we don't hire employees, and I'm the one-woman show. So it's also my studio, and I am not always there, but when I am there, I'm usually reproducing samplers or stitching or kitting or chatting with lovely stitchers or passers-by that come in to check out the vintage old general store built in the 1870s and still standing. So anyway, thank you for visiting with me today. God bless all of you mothers and all of you who are born of a mother, which all of us were. So God bless mothers, and until next time, Stitch Antiques. Take care.